What's poppin', world? Top of the morning, y'all tapped in with the Head of the Game podcast. Without further ado, y'all read the title. Let's get into it now. I really wasn't gonna sensationalize this topic or this headline because I was like, well, you know. But no, it's that serious. It's that serious. I don't want to say misinformed, disinformation. This is straight out propaganda, right? Because we're talking about people's daily lives at stake, hanging on the balance right now as I speak right now at this moment, right? The media propaganda regarding the economy is really sad because the one thing they just love to do is not bring context, or miscontextualize the situation and just look at it on a surface level by just choosing specific metrics to support their narrative, right? And it only supports top earners in the economy. And now I'm about to bring y'all some context. So if they say, hey, well, unemployment is at a historic low, the stock market is at an all-time high, so therefore, and the inflation isn't that crazy. So using those two indicators should let y'all know that the world or this country is functioning fine. Right? You know my problem with that? I'm about to now provide y'all context. And I got a good analogy for y'all, right? Just to crystallize what I'm really trying to say here. Just to drive home the point. People are more broke than they ever have been before, and at the same time, people are more wealthy than they ever have been before. Hence why you keep hearing the erosion or corrosion of the middle class. It's slowly but surely dissipating and disappearing from existence. So, here's my analogy, right? So way back in the day, in the NBA, it was looked at as a team game. You've seen a lot of bounce passes. Passing was the selling point of the game. All right, we're a bunch of guys, and we're put here together, and we're put our differences aside for one goal, one accomplishment, and one result, right? We're just pulling for each other for the bigger, the object, the objective that's bigger than our own personal motives, right? That's what basketball represented. Today, it still represents that, but I'm going to tell y'all the transition and why it's a little different from where it was at back in the day. So, if y'all watch basketball, right, and those that do would agree with this, once ISO ball and things became more Eurocentric, that's where the shot attempts started to go up. Meaning the point averages started to go up. It started to inflate, right? And at the end of the day, the games would still have a total score of 120, 110. And the scoring is up due to the rules, but by and large, there's usually 2 or 3 people out of the entire team probably taking 50% of the shots. And everybody else just kind of decides and it just kind of dissipates, right? How things used to be would be like the San Antonio Spurs. You had Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Ginobili, and they would just share the ball. People would be like, oh, it's broccoli, it's boring basketball. It's just fundamentals. It's just post-ups and sky hooks and shooting off the glass and, all this fundamental stuff, but it worked, right? But now we're in a transitionary stage where player empowerment has given a lot of the responsibility to the star players and less responsibility to the role players. And now things are starting to, players have more power than they ever did before. That's a good and a bad thing, but that's a discussion for another day. What I would the point I'm making is the top earners, there's always been top earners, lower class, middle class, upper class, elites, right? The elites have more money than they ever had before in history. People are more broke than they ever had before history, meaning that the same amount of money is going into the economy as far as purchasing power, but the people that's on the bottom is spending less, and the people at the top is spending more. So initially, they offset each other to give just to give the perception that things are how they used to be, and they're not. Who do you think buying all these houses at this housing market, right? People waiting for a housing crash, a stock market crash, so that the correction and things can restore the order and balance. But if you see how capitalism works, right? How capitalism, this economic system, eventually big bank is going to take little bank. When everybody got all them stimulus checks and them PPP loans, the cream is always going to rise to the top. If they sit up there and say, hey, all right, we're going to give all Americans $5,000, guess what? Most of that money is going to come to. Most of that money is going to just go back to the people that's pretty much running the country. They say, oh, it's the government and the politicians. No. Who really running the government is the people that got the most money, because those are the donors, the people that's endorsing and stuff like that. It's the 1%ers, right? So those are the ones that's sitting up there having control within reason, of course. They're not really controlling the country, but they do have a substantial amount of influence, right? Just because they're able to dictate and manipulate the levers and stuff like that. So when you listen to the media, most of these media representatives and these broadcasters are millionaires anyway, so they're only going to say what's going to be favorable towards the people that they're supposed to represent, right? So you got these networks, CNN, Fox News, and they're playing this little political game between who's wrong and who's right, and what's this and what's that. It's all distraction, because they're the same team playing on opposite sides of the ball. One is defense, one is offense. Now, it's up to you to decide who's on what side of the ball. Really, it's really subjective. It can go either way, but the main point is they're playing on the same team. Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal, all these buzzwords. When it really comes down to classes, it's either you got it or you don't. So don't let these people sit up there, put a battery in your back, have us fight amongst each other, while the real game that's being at play is being hidden in the background, right? Why are you trying to pass this law and veto that, and you just getting into this political sparring with your neighbor? Slowly but surely, the people, it's good cop, bad cop. So that's why I sit up there and say, like, when you listen to the media, the real media is the people, boots on the ground. Videos like this, where people that's living a real reality out here driving in the real world, not sitting up there in some cubicle or some studio with lights and all this other stuff, trying to tell you on how you should live your life, or how what you're looking at is wrong. Like your eyes gonna lie to you. You go out into the world, you look at your bank account, you broker than ever before. Things are more expensive than ever before. So why are you gonna listen to people that are trying to tell you, hey, your life is not as bad as it seems? Like, they know your life better than you do. Like, you should have a positive perspective towards this. So my main point for doing this video really is to just bring awareness. Now, this is not fear-mongering, like, oh, the U.S. economy is gonna crash, and people are gonna be broke forever. No, this is a healthy economy is always going to, if you understand, like, history, right? The last thing the government wants is deflation, meaning devaluing of assets. So then they have to inflate the dollar to keep up with the value of how much the assets are worth, right? Because it's really not worth as much as it is. But because so many people have so much money, they're able to dictate, you feel me, the norms of other people, right? So if I'm a person that owns 10 houses in this neighborhood, and I design them and I furbish them and I make sure that the upkeep is right, and I'm a person that has a selling point that I won't sell under this amount, to a certain extent, I then am manipulating the market because I'm now setting the new price point. Now, what could offset that is if there's other houses in that neighborhood selling for a lower price, so then therefore it affects the price that I have, right? That's how you have manipulations in the housing market, is because it's who's selling for how much and who's buying, right? Supply and demand. So when you understand economics and you go back into history and really analyze how this whole game works, then and only then you'll be able to have the information to properly position yourself, or to look at it and to understand where you are really at in the food chain, right? How much money you actually need to make. What do you actually have to do? You know, because when people get on the internet, and it's both sides of this, it's people feeding propaganda on both sides. Meaning that people are saying, oh, everything is fine. And there's other people saying, oh, well, everything is about to go to waste. Yeah, just wait on it. When it's neither, right? It's neither. Everything is not fine. Because people are more broke than ever. Meaning that people have to work more hours than ever. But what is the old saying, and this has been since the beginning of history, only the strongest is going to survive. Crying and complaining on the internet and throwing a little pity party and people commenting and sitting up there crying with you and stuff, a little crying party, while people sitting up there coming up with their own businesses and being more creative and thinking outside the box just to get ahead. Hey, at the end of the day, when it's smoke clear, at the end of the day, there's nothing that's going to speak louder than those results, right? People can have their narratives, people can have their perspectives, people can have their opinions, but at the end of the day, the only thing that's going to matter when it's smoke clear is who's standing where when that time stops. You feel me? When that time stops and it's time's up, it's time to stop writing on your test. You got to shove your work, shove your test, your Scantron or your exam to the front of the class. Those results is going to determine who's doing what and who can't do what. And as practical and as, you know, I could say insensitive as that sounds, that's just the world we live in. We live in a cold world, and I feel like the faster people get inclined to that and position themselves to take the emotions out of it and look at things for what it is the better you're gonna have an approach towards solving whatever problems you're going through. So, with that being said, I'm gonna wrap that up right there. I wanna tell y'all have a good day, man. Stay motivated, stay locked in. You know, don't stay off the internet, stay off the social media, stay off these news sites. Sit up there, do your own research, your own due diligence, because everybody's situation is different. You feel me? What may work for one person may not work for you, so you got to find your own solution. Stop listening to all these other gurus that trying to sit up there and motivate you and stuff like that. Do your own research, look up your own stuff, you feel me, and just do things accordingly. Because I could give you my financial plan, but we may not be sitting up there faced with the same circumstances, so a lot of things that I may be implementing may not translate or be effective for you, and vice versa. You feel me? So, that being said, y'all have a good day. I'm up out of here.